Sure. Thank you, John. Manny and I had the opportunity to roam the floors at NRF, kick the tires of a lot of technology, and to interact with a number of new entrepreneurs. For those who don't know Manny, he's a managing partner at Q Division, which does digital transformation consulting, a part of StrataCash. And in fact, we were both on a panel Manny hosted on behalf of StrataCash at NRF to talk about retail media. So without further ado, Manny's put together a terrific presentation, and he's going to take us through the highlights of the show. Manny?
Great, thank you. What I'll do is this will be conversational as always. So if I say something or you want clarification, just stop me. I'll hopefully be able to give you. It's hard to condense what you see at NRF into like salient points, and I like to do like a top five all the time. So it will be very general as I go through it, but we can drill down deeper if there's specific questions. So as Gwen said, we did have the opportunity to attend NRF. As much as up until the last minute, some of the big guys like Salesforce and Microsoft and IBM, Cisco, all of them pulled out because, of course, New York was a hotspot. But there was a lot of attendance. I would say probably, Gwen, you can correct me if my guess is over, but I think it was something in the neighborhood of like 10,000.
I was hearing
attendees.
estimates more like 7,500, but I think it was kind of a mix.
It's hard to tell unless you were counting.
But, I can probably tell you.
Vicky, what is it?
What it was.
Okay.
The official numbers are 15,000 were registered, and the official numbers are 10,000. And remember that the 10,000 does include solution providers. Like it includes everybody who's in there.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
But yeah, thank you. I think the key here, though, is it was still a good showing considering all of the challenges it faced. People, especially the retailers, and especially international, did show up. I think our busiest day was the International Day, which was Sunday, and that was mostly people from South America. So it seemed like there was definitely this focused interest. The attendees were definitely more senior than I've seen before, and I think that also has to do with there's a higher bar for people to attend a conference these days because of all the challenges and travel restrictions and things like that. So they're starting to send more senior people, more focused on a specific mission. They knew what they were looking for. They were definitely very engaged. So if anything good came out of this COVID situation, it is the level of attendee the bar has been raised. That I can definitely, I vouch for that. I think that's the case. And as I show here in some of these pictures, there were some really full sessions. So again, regardless of the challenges they faced, there was a good showing, and I feel like this is kind of the way that the industry is headed, because we really just want to get back to work and they want to solve the problems that they have. And perhaps the focus is really, I should say, less on growth of innovation, but more on solving specific problems that are in the operational realm or the near-term problems. I didn't see a lot of new stuff, but I did see evolutionary stuff. So the stuff we saw 2-3 years ago is still there. It's just better. And you can see a lot less of the, I'll say, ridiculous types of solutions that were out there where, there aren't necessarily a problem they're trying to solve. They're probably trying to create a market, but there was less of that and a more focus on operations and customer and things they need to get done to get the business moving. So that's kind of the overall theme of the show. And then I tried to condense down our trends. So we have unified commerce, and this covers, it's a huge umbrella word because it covers e-commerce, it covers returns, it covers Metaverse, NFTs, all of that, but it has everything to do with taking digital and physical and converging them together. and making the customer experience and unifying it. So what they get online and the expectations they have online, they also can have some semblance of that as they get into the physical space, because people are coming back. And there's also that story where even during the past 24 months, everyone was talking about how e-commerce has become really huge, which it has. But still, I think the numbers today are 72% or something in that neighborhood of the store, of retail purchases are still happening in store. It's just that the customer expectations for these experiential things are much, much higher. If you're going to get me out to a store, there's got to be a good reason, and it's something that I can't get online. Sustainable shopping and the circular economy, definitely. There's also diversity in workforce and things like that were a theme, but sustainability, I did see an enormous amount of solutions based on those. And workforce automation, I think with all of the labor challenges every retailer, every business faces, automation is the solve that they're looking at. And if there are ways to take or do more with less, that's where the retailers were looking. And there are a lot of solution providers that evolved their solution to do that. I talk about convenience tech because Amazon's grab and go store was there front and center, but it's also, I think, a byproduct of the curbside and, again, all of the things that the behaviors that have been accelerated over the past 24 months as it relates to self-service and autonomous delivery and things where it's more click and collect based. So that's the convenience tech side. Data and machine learning, ML and AI, these are all, it's baked into every solution out there. So if you're not doing it now, you are behind the 8 ball. You need to be, as a retailer, if you're not using any of these solutions right now, you're behind. And the rest of the industry has already adopted it, and you can see that from the types of solutions that I'll show you later. And then as we get into voice, I mean, Gwen and I did do a round together looking across the floor, but I specifically was looking for voice opportunities or operational voice solutions that were already in place and being tested. And I found a few. I wouldn't say voice was a theme, but it is part of a larger ecosystem based on the machine learning and AI and machine vision and all of that put together. And they have some interesting solutions that combine them to make a very viable solution for the retailers. So I'll cover that as well. So we'll start off with the big buzzword that's sucking all the air out of the room these days, and that's the metaverse. Definitely a hot topic. Everyone's taking it seriously. However, how you interpret it and how you experiment with it is a different story. So here are a few examples of how brands are already experimenting in the metaverse, so to speak, and I'm using air quotes when I say that. And that has a lot to do with they're trying to understand how people want to engage and how they want to play and what they find interesting and engaging. So these are places where things like luxury brands, cosmetics, and apparel are all playing some sort of test, whether it's a Nike's game world in Roblox or the Vans kind of experience where you can buy different types of decks and shoes and things and wear them in the metaverse and play with your friends. And then on the left side, you can see you've got the luxury brands, which are also experimenting in Roblox, which is interesting because it's basically a game for tweens and kids and things like that, but there are also some adults in that space, and so they're trying to see who is actually participating, what kind of engagement they'll get. And then there's, of course, P&G, and they've got their beauty sphere experience that lets you kind of look through. It's I'd say super experimental. They're trying all sorts of different experiences in there, whether it's navigating a floating city, trying on virtual clothes, looking at different types of products and understanding the value of what P&G brings. So it's all of those things together. And I think what we're seeing here is definitely people trying to figure out what is really going to be the stickiness of the metaverse, because it's all over the board. There's also, I call these ridiculous because there is no reason to do this. It's one of those things where someone grabbed onto the buzzword and whipped up an app for the show and decided it would be something to get people to the booth. So they had this company called Crown TV, which is a digital signage company but they had an app that allowed you to put NFTs into the retail space, but it's artwork. So there, to me, in that case, I don't really see the value of this. I don't understand why you would want to put NFTs into your retail space, aside from just putting it on the wall for experiential reasons, but it just doesn't make sense to me. So I call this ridiculous. But there are companies that are actually taking more of a strategic role. So this is Deborah Weinswig, Corset Research. She spoke to Liz Bacular, who is the Global Tech Innovation leader at Estee Lauder. And what they're doing is experimenting and taking the loyalty program that they have for Clinique and tying it to NFTs. And so what they did was they did a campaign where they allowed people in social media to share what they understood the Clinique beauty ethos was, and they created 3 different NFTs that you would get if you signed up for the loyalty program. And it was basically a lottery draw, but it was a way to see how they could use NFTs as part of a loyalty program to get people to join, to get people to engage, and get people to express themselves. And so here is what they had 3 versions of this. And so this is exactly what you would win. I don't think they announced the winner yet, but this is what the NFT was that you would get, and you would own it. So as part of that NFT model, you would own it. It's one of a kind, so it has some sort of intrinsic value and maybe some monetary value down the line. But here's an example of what it was. You can turn up the volume on your phone or your viewer, and you can hear. It's also I'd say, auditory experience as well. So it'll go through again, but that's exactly part of the experiments that retailers are trying to understand about consumer behavior and how to connect these things that are trending right now. So I applaud this approach. I'm not so sure it's going to work.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment, because it seems like on the one example, it's almost as if the MFT as part of a booth was an attraction. It's almost to get the attention of the people at NRF. And then the NFTs for Clinique, it's like, oh, this is the latest thing, so this will be a hook for loyalty program. And then you probably saw that Frank's Red Hot, which is part of McCormick's Spice, is offering, they have a sweepstakes for an edible NFT. And then they said, well, don't ask us how we're going to do that. So what's your comment? It is kind of this, it's like the latest thing, and they're being sprinkled all over.
Exactly. And that's a great example and a way to say it. It's being sprinkled on everything. It's like the seasoning to get people to look at you. It's an experiment. I mean, at least I think in this case, there is some strategic approach that Estee Lauder is taking with the Clinique idea, but the previous version I showed you really doesn't have any value. To a retailer, there's no reason you would put an NFT on a screen in your store. It doesn't drive business. It's not driving, I don't even think it would drive traffic, because it's one of a kind. So you would only, I guess, if you really thought it through, the NFT is one of a kind and you can only see it in your retailer space, maybe that's a way to drive traffic. But I think that's the stretch. So I would say it is worthwhile to experiment, but I wouldn't, I would wait to see how this evolves. There's so much, I'll call it scamming right now going on with NFTs in general, where they're trying to boost the price and there's no regulation. It's a very dicey place to be. So if you do it in a controlled environment and you have a specific goal or objective, I think it's great. But other than that, throwing it just in your store, probably not a great idea. And the amount of money that you'd have to spend to do something like that, I'm not sure it'll pan out.
Let's see how the art world does with it.
Yes, exactly. So there's also this part of the e-commerce, since it's become so big, that there is also, it's a very transactional experience. Like when people buy online, it's really, I'm either resupplying myself, I'm getting something I want quickly, and it's not necessarily a brand experience. In fact, most people, if it's out of stock in some place, they'll just flip to the next best thing and get it somewhere else. So there's no real loyalty either. So what this company is doing, and it's actually a bigger trend of trying to, again, connect digital and physical, as well as tie in loyalty to the experience overall. What they do is they're offering 2 to 3 hour delivery. They are offering a platform that allows direct-to-consumer and CPGs to sell directly to their customer base, but they're also putting in brand ambassadors that deliver the products. So if you order let's just say like an iPhone, the person that delivers it will also demonstrate it for you when they get to your house and set it up for you. Or if it's a specific product, they'll tell you all about the product, its uses, the value it brings, that kind of thing. So you tie it back to a nicer, a deeper, richer experience with brand ambassadors that are delivering your product. So it's an interesting play. And they also are, of course, playing on the sustainability, because when you get it delivered by someone on a bike. So there's no emissions and zero carbon footprint, so to speak. And their focus, of course, is in the denser areas, because you can't really deliver to the suburbs on a bike. But in the denser urban areas, you can definitely get around easier, and more than likely that's how people are getting around so quickly to deliver within the 2 hour window. So Ojai is definitely, they've been around for a few years. In fact, they were there in 2019 as well, but they have seen a huge growth. They've raised some more startup cash, and they are expanding their coverage nationwide. So this is an interesting play, and I think what it really is doing is taking that super transactional experience you get with just e-commerce and kind of taking what you would get in the store and bringing it to the person as part of the delivery service. So it's something to watch. Then there's, of course, this assisted selling, where it's kind of a cross between taking what you get on the e-commerce site and also putting it into the store. Now, this is an example of, we had this in our booth, but it's part of an overall self-service model, but it's also taking what you would normally find on the retailer site and bringing it to a physical location, and also allowing you to touch and feel the products itself. So I'll just play this video and explain what you're seeing. This is specific to, we call it a lift and learn. So as you pick up the products, it changes the display itself. So you're contacting the product itself, or you're tasting it. And those, we'll call them shelf labels, are actually digital. So once you lift it up, you can get a little, we'll call it infomercial type of thing that helps you understand what you're looking at, maybe some recommendations. If you pick up two, it will do a comparison of the two. And this is something you can do in an e-commerce site anyway, but now we're making it a more in-store physical experience. And on top of all of this, you can sample the products, as well as talk to some, in this case, we had an expert, what do they call those wine guys? The guys that, the tasting people? Yeah, sommelier, thank you. But we had a sommelier that would pop up as you click the button, and he would show up on the screen and talk specifically to you. So you had a one-on-one experience, and he would say, okay, what are you looking for? And what kind of things are you pairing it with? But it's kind of a nice way, again, to kind of bring back the human side of this kind of interaction. So it's not just transactional. You're not just getting some marketing speak. You're actually talking to an expert who asks you what you need, and kind of has a conversational experience with you. So it's an interesting play, and we had a lot of interest in this specific type of digital physical engagement. Let's look at sustainable shopping and the circular economy. So this is one of my favorites, Returnity. And what I like about this is they're really thinking through the entire process of, in this case, it would be subscription transactions or e-commerce when you have a monthly package that shows up, because it generates a lot of trash, right? Especially if it's cardboard box, you throw it away. A lot of those meal kits do the same thing. You throw away a lot of things. So what they've done is taken and engineered an entire end-to-end process. And what they do is they work with the direct-to-consumer brands or the CPGs, help them understand the entire process, and they design the bag around it, how it can be branded, and also how it gets returned back to the store. So they are part consulting, part product design, and all about sustainability. And they really are digging deep into the circular economy. The companies like Target and Walmart are already are testing with them now to see how well this type of model works. And the things that they were telling me is like one of the biggest challenges is when you brand something on a reusable packages, it wears and tears on it, so eventually the logo rubs off because it's been carried around and things like that. So they have tried to find different types of substrates and inks and things that are more durable and surfaces. So that's all part and parcel of their consulting services that they do around sustainable shopping. There's also the technical side of this circular economy. This company, Ureli, does both. They have a platform that allows for secondhand selling and attaching it to a retailer's site. So far, a lot of the apparel companies have already adopted some sort of secondhand or gray market reselling portion of their business. So if it's a designer brand or luxury brand and you resell it, they allow you to make it part of the overall transaction. But what these folks do is they put together the entire system, which comes from distribution, authenticating the items, because that's what the number one challenge with luxury reselling and apparel is, making sure it's really not a counterfeit brand. And so what they've done also is tie in a couple types of Internet of Things sensors. They're using NFC or crypto NFC, which is basically a NFC that uses the blockchain as a way to maintain its authenticity and track where it comes from. So they have kind of put together a set of services into one application, and then what they do is they give it to the brand and say, here, go ahead, you can white label this and make it part of your e-commerce site. So it's another way of looking at it, and I think we're going to see a lot more of this in the next 12 months because sustainability is like top of the list for all retailers and for the consumers itself. Then we have doing more with less. So this example of Tulip, which is basically a concierge type of solution, allows you to retain the knowledge in the workforce. Because what happens today is if you educate someone, especially in apparel, all of the details of the clothing styles and colors and types of things, if that person leaves, which they ultimately will do, you lose all of that institutional training. So what Tulip has tried to do is put everything together in a tool that is also part of the e-commerce transaction side. So it's tied into the e-commerce site of the retailer, as well as when you go into the store, you can use it to self-educate. Or if there is a customer service person, they can go in and look at it and see what you've been doing on your account, see your history, bring that up and take over what you started to do your research on and help you find the item that you're looking for just by tying into the back-end system. So it's really about doing more with less, and workforce automation, in this case, it does really well with retaining the knowledge that you normally have to invest in your employees. And so there are a lot of these solutions out there, but this one's kind of stuck out because they've partnered with Apple. So not only does it's an Apple native platform, it's a lot of the types of things that they've learned from Apple. If you ever go to the Apple store and how they hand you off to different people, but they always know what you want and they always kind of make it super seamless and easy. This is basically the same strategy. That's how they're developing this product. And then, of course, we had the Amazon Go. This is their latest iteration. This is the one that they use in the grocery stores now. It's a lot less curated. It's more like a giant vending machine. And you can see here on the right side, it's not a huge store. It's really about grabbing and going. I think the challenge here is every item in there is given equal exposure and time. So as a marketer, I would look at it and say, well, how am I going to get people to buy more of this specific product? Because there's no real promotional advertising, marketing, or anything in there. It's really all about convenience. Walking in, you don't even have to use the app. You slide your credit card through, you walk through the gates, and then you pick up something and you walk out. That's it. So this self-service convenience tech continues to evolve, but I think while Amazon has continued to evolve it and is starting to put, you'll see more of these in the airports and lobbies of hotels and even on universities, large campuses, things like that. It's still really, the reality is it's just a giant vending machine. And so I think a lot of companies are starting to look at this and say, we need to add more opportunity for the brands to stand out or buy space or shelf space or highlight themselves, because it's really not about selling more higher value product. This is about the customer and just grabbing and going. So there's kind of that one strategy or another, and you have to decide which way you want to go as a retailer.
Hi, Manny, it's Ray. Just a couple
Yep.
questions or comments about that. So I've partnered with a group called Trigo, which is a competitor to Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And their stated objective and sort of where they're achieving is to be with the top 10 retailers in the world. They've already partnered with Tesco and Aldi and a variety of companies to do a competitive solution to what Amazon's offering. My first question is, did Amazon mention how many retailers have adopted this? Is it just Hudson's, part of Do Free Group, or do they have more partners in the U.S.?
I think right now from the airport standpoint, it's just Hudson's, and that's more anecdotal. I didn't talk to them specifically about who they're working with.
Okay.
But this is, I think that this is basically the byproduct of all of the grab and go stores that they've had. They've refined it. You can see it's less about using the app and more about just convenience.
Yeah.
And also, I did notice there is probably half the amount of technology that they used to have.
That was going to be my second question. So the biggest obstacle so far has been store size, where it's very difficult to get above a certain amount of square footage. And the reason for that is the processing power that you need to have. So were you able to see where they kept their processing power? Because the store I visited in downtown Seattle about 2 years ago, they actually had the equal amount of square footage for the store. They had a server room that was the same size as the store.
That's exactly the big challenge, right?
Yeah, but were you able to see how big the server room is for this, or it wasn't available? Or?
No, it wasn't available, and I think what I've seen from them is they also have learned over the past years on how to use more of the cloud storage and optimize it and make it more energy efficient, because that has always been the number one challenge. Is you need a space as big as the retail space itself.
Yeah.
In the past. Now it's probably half as much, and they're also taking different strategies, using more machine vision, using more weight sensors, and probably less cameras, so to speak. So they've kind of figured out that, I think what they did, of course, was they used their initial stores to learn from it and then understand where they could cut corners. And, that's, I think, why there's a lot more competition, because they can see where the faults are in the Amazon system. And so these new startups that are coming out are kind of piggybacking on what they've seen and making it more efficient. And I think that's going to be the winner, because it's definitely still a huge investment when you want to do these cashierless, unattended stores. So,
yeah, great. Thank you.
This is Cynthia. Do either of you know of a good list of, obviously there are lists of all of the technologies that do this. Do you know of a good list? I'm working with a cruise ship retailer who obviously has crazy limitations in trying to put something like that in place, but all sorts of motivations, because wouldn't you love to run down and grab your aloe vera in the middle of the night when everything else is closed? But clearly, storage room for servers is non-existent when you're on a cruise ship. So I'm looking for the top 5 solutions that they need to be looking at that are cost effective. Can either of you help point me to such a list or help me think through this problem?
Sure. I would say, don't think of it as an automated store. Think of it as self-checkout. That's one way to kind of really take a lot of the technology out, right? Because you can
honor system.
I think that's a lot of the airports already have self-checkout, and that's how they're managing the cost, because it's really just all in the point of sale, and they're using machine vision and parts in that. But I can email you, or you can email me after, and I can definitely give you what I think are the top 5 ways to look at it.
Thanks.
Yeah, and
Sure.
I would just add that if they want a product demo from one of the companies, I know
They
the
do.
Trigo
They
guys,
do.
the Trigo guys would do that on the internet.
I'm
Trigo's
setting up demos for them right now. Is exactly what I'm doing.
Cynthia,
Okay,
maybe
good.
Cynthia, maybe after this call, I'll do an email to the 4 of us so everybody has their contacts. How's that?
Thanks, Gwen. Thanks
Sure,
a lot.
I'd be happy to do that.
Vicky, anything from your side, just on that one?
Sorry, needed to unmute. No, I think that this is really interesting as far as I agree with Manny that there's a point. What I'm seeing is what I saw in New York from a user perspective is the hotels have gone to self-checkout for their little kiosky stuff. And that was really a result of the pandemic from this. I mean, for their, for like snacks and drinks and stuff like that. The touchless aspect of the pandemic has also really helped this whole aspect of self-checkout, finding a way to, record your purchases without involving anybody else.
I'll add one more comment, because Manny, what you were kind of saying, well, there's not room for the brands to really pop out. Yeah. But on the flip side, and you and I have both worked in Illinois Center. We know the traffic at lunchtime with all the different buildings connected together, and where seeing a line is kind of the visual barrier to entering that retailer or quick serve restaurant or retailer. This kind of technology really helps with the cadence of an urban working, breakfast, lunch type environment. So it just that's the flip side of it. It really does meet the shopper for their need state.
Yep, absolutely. So I mean, I think this is all a great discussion, because I think in most cases, the retailer needs to make this choice of, is it going to be this experience? Do I want to make it more like shopping used to be? Or is this going to be a giant vending machine that people just walk in and grab stuff and go, right? That's really, and you can have both, but I think when you're making these investments, the cruise ship concept and any other concept, this is also a labor solve too, right? So as we continue down this path where labor is in this huge shortage and it's hard to keep people around, automating as much as possible is critical. And so it's just that trade-off. So
I think the cruise ships actually add another element of retail that probably applies to other areas. But imagine being able to expand that retail out to other non-retail locations, so you could quickly have a little kiosk at the pool or in the lobby or places where you don't otherwise have specific locked up spaces, because everything has to be in a particular area. And that probably is expandable into all kinds of other live, work, co-op-y kinds of environments with little micro stores.
Oh, right. Yes, absolutely. And then also the way you curate it is also a key piece. Like if it's just for or even new brands can come in and get some exposure, that kind of thing. So we've seen a couple models where some of the curation on these automated stores is really, it's not necessarily big brand names, it's all new brands, and just to get people to try them. And so that's another way to look at it. We spent a lot of time, and Gwen and I spent a lot of time in the innovation area just because we love it. But there are a few things that stuck out to me. Autonomous delivery is still big. I think we still face the bigger challenge of the infrastructure to keep that going, but everybody has some sort of solution. I think the one that interests me the most was this new RoboMart, which is the one in the center. It's the van with the snacks on the outside, where you can see the snacks in the door. But what you do is this is an app that you have, and you summon the RoboMart car, which is autonomous. It has a driver in it just right now, but it's still autonomous, and they're testing and things like that. And what happens is it comes to you, and what they end up doing is learning what each neighborhood's what they like, and they start curating it more and more. So it's like having a vending machine Uber that comes to you when you need something. and it has everything that you like in it based on your neighborhood or your community behaviors. So that's one unique place I think was a nice, a different way to approach this type of automated delivery. Of course, there's Walmart, which is looking at last mile and middle mile delivery, which is the short run distribution from the store to the neighborhood or the communities that are close by. And then there's autonomy, which is doing deliveries only inside of airport terminals. So this goes to the travel industry. Again, they have these people that are called gate nesters that just hang out at the gate just because it's so stressful anyway to move around, and they're worried about they're going to miss their flight. And what these guys do is they help deliver merchandise or food from the concessions that are there. And this also helps the concessions because they don't have to have a specific storefront. And it's just like any other autonomous delivery. You place the order on your mobile app, tell them what gate you're at, and then it shows up and you unlock it and it gives you your stuff. So it's an interesting play on autonomy just for a specific type of facility. The one on the left was from Ultraleap, which is it's not a new company, but it's a company that has adapted haptic feedback. So they're the ones that have been using ultrasound to create these three-dimensional shapes in midair so that you can actually, like if you're driving, you can push your hand forward and that would increase the volume of your radio, but you would also feel feedback, haptic feedback on your hand using the ultrasound. So it's very expensive technology, but they've squished it down into a kiosk. And so it looks like he's using his finger, but the reality is he's just gesturing with his fingers in a very natural way, which you would normally do if you were just kind of waving your hand over it. But it gets to the touchless side of things, but it also brings to the forefront things like if you were in drive-through and you just wanted to do self-service, you wouldn't have to talk to anyone. You wouldn't even have to touch the screen. You stick your hand out of the car window and you just start gesturing and picking your food items. So it has some promise. And then of course the thing on the far right is just the drone delivery, which is supposedly going to happen soon, which I know they're doing in some communities, but I still think we have a long way to go, especially in urban areas. This is the mechanisms behind how it drops the package or lands the package on your front door. So there is, I'll call it the last mile drop, because there's this one part of when you order a drone delivery, how it puts it on your porch is always a challenge. And so these guys have developed kind of a skyhook system where it lowers it down and then releases it, or it can pick up return packages as well. And then we get, sure.
Just this aspect of what you call the Uber, vending machine kind of thing. Yep. I think that this is one of the most fascinating things that really talks to personalization, because think of Ojai and think of GoPuff, which is growing like crazy. And the challenge they have, it does not, to me, fit into sustainability at all, because they have to have little mini distribution centers everywhere. They have to have product quickly. And so it's almost like this is a more, again, it's going down another level of personalization, that if you are somebody who uses GoPuff all the time and you're always ordering diapers and beer and snacks, I think this is really fascinating to kind of turn that a little bit on its head. And this is, I think, what will have the most traction because of the growth of GoPuff and their new competitors. I
think you're right. It redefines the category of convenience in general. Right. Like you can either go super high-end, curated, gourmet, which I've seen as well. But this, I agree with you. This, to me, that's why it stuck out to me, is I like this approach, because you're really, this is the ultimate inconvenience, and you have everything that I like. That's the other part, is the personalization, is you ultimately learn my preferences and you keep them in stock. So it's cool. Okay. And basically, I said earlier that customer data, machine learning, AI, all of that is now just table stakes. If you're not using them as part of your operations or your marketing and customer engagement, all of that, you really need to. I tell this to retailers all the time. This isn't like the stuff it used to be 2 years ago, where it's very heady and visionary. This is table stakes. People are using it. It's been deployed and tested and scaled. And so this company, Everseen, I like how they explain how they use the whole system. It's customer data, machine vision. Every camera that's out there is not just looking at, is someone picking up a package, they're looking at what kind of package it is. So it's getting super sophisticated, and all of this gets injected back into the system so that for logistics, for customer engagement, for speed of service, all of that gets baked right in and just gets optimized better and better. So this ultimately covers the entire gamut of retail operations. The other part is, of course, Lenovo and NVIDIA, they have their platform, especially when it comes to, so this is my entrance into the voice side. They have their voice platform, their AI platform, which they're deploying in all different ways, but they're combining it with everything else that they have, whether it's graphics, AI, they can do things like speech synthesis, all of that baked together. And they basically are just handing these to the startups and saying, here are all the tools for our platform. Go ahead and make something meaningful. And so what you're going to see next are some examples of this customer data, machine learning, AI, and voice that I think is a way to start thinking about how voice can find its place within the retail space. So this is one of them, Deep Brain AI. It's a Korean company. And what I like about this is they have taken the unmanned convenience store. So we all know, think of it as a 7-Eleven Amazon store, so to speak, grab and go. Nobody's in there. It's totally unmanned. And what they did is they put a human side to it. So if you have questions, you want to know about payments or something in stock, they have a virtual store clerk. So this person doesn't exist. This is generated 3D virtual avatar that ties into their voice AI, so it can talk to you and you see the expression. So you get the human sentiment, the emotion, and it feels more authentic. So I'm going to run this video just so you can see how much expression she has when she speaks, because it's something that I haven't seen to this level in a while. So it's also in Korean, so you probably won't understand what she's saying.
I'm not hearing her. Is she speaking?
Oh, you can't hear her? Well,
no.
It's okay. She's not saying anything in English.
Okay.
But if you look at her, you can see her blinking. She's smiling. All of the things that we use as visual cues. I mean, think about it today when people have a mask on at the cash register. We don't know if they're having a bad day or not until they slam the stuff on the counter or something. But what I see here is this is the first time voice combined with AI and 3D and human sentiment and emotion, or the simulation of that, really comes to bear when it comes to customer first contact. So I feel like these are really deep ways that and ways that retailers are willing to spend money on bringing voice into their customer facing applications. So
Manny, is this on a screen within the store, or is this like
yes.
a virtual, or it's on a screen and you can walk in front of the screen and have a conversation and get your learnings that you need in the retail store, correct?
Correct. It's basically the store clerk that you would just, instead, but she's not mobile, so you will walk up to her and say, hey, where are the Twinkies? And she'll say, they're over here in aisle 5, or how can I pay? That kind of thing. But it's definitely, and it's life size, I should say. So again, it kind of simulates having that human person there, even though you know it's not a human. And she's not creepy 3D avatar either. You'll notice she looks like a person. There's no super realistic aspect to her. So they've also kind of nailed that as well, where they're not doing the uncanny valley. So
I think he also he was trying to clarify, I think it was that Ken, where is this projected? Is it fixed on a screen? Where, it's
on a screen? It's like a standing kiosk, so to speak.
Yeah. I think this could be the next big thing.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, it dovetail. At CES we were sharing some recent Euromonitor data on kind of post-pandemic or during pandemic, people's propensity, interest, acceptance to interact with a robot, for example, in the aisle, shot way up. So it's maybe kind of all these things coming together at once.
Exactly. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make. This voice has this opportunity to be part of this ecosystem, or part of a bigger experience. Because I think sometimes the ones I've seen try to solve everything as this is the one way that you need to engage with the brand or the retailer, and versus this way where it's part of the overall system. Like when I look at, and this is another company that's using NVIDIA's platform, and what they're doing is they're using it as part of the QSR, especially now. QSR are getting super hit hard with workforce. They can't get enough people. They're closing early. It's just very hard to have people work in those environments now. So by using voice as part of the overall way to service the customer, it's not just one way of ordering, but they're also analyzing how people are talking. They're analyzing what they're ordering as part of the voice capture system, so that they can get a better idea of product inventory, product category prioritization. They can do predictive ordering, because what they'll do is they'll figure out how long it takes from the ordering process to get through the line from prep. So all of this is baked into the overall operations of the system, but it's not part and parcel. It's not a voice solution. It's voice is part of the many solutions. And I think this is what I see and where the traction is coming from when you combine many things as it relates to customer analytics as part of it. And Vistry is the company that's doing it. So, but these were the top two ones that I saw that had some scalability, that have shown that they've been working in the retail space. And I think that you can see this is where these retailers or the QSRs actually did invest in them and saw this experiment as valuable. So that's my last slide.
Manny, to your point, go ahead. I want to see what you have here.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just summarizing everything we saw over again, so you can go ahead and ask.
We've had some quiet conversations with NVIDIA and Lenovo recently, and your point is wonderfully taken. And part of the challenge before those of us in voice is redefining for retail that voice is part of operations. Voice is a tool within a larger toolbox versus a skill and action, which is a path that has been proven as a dead end.
Exactly. The other aspect of it we didn't cover, but Van West was there in the Lenovo area with part of representing Vocalytics. The listening as a measure of what is going on with sentiment is a tool that kind of brings up a lot of different opportunity. And of course we have personal devices now that are listening to us as well, but what can be gained from in terms of a training perspective. I mean, there are just a whole host of things. If there's an issue, how an issue could be de-escalated through that listening piece of the equation. It's early days, but I think it's an exciting space.
I agree. And I think what I tried to do is summarize where I saw how retailers were using voice. And I think conversational has its place, but it's not when it comes to order taking, or because especially when it comes to QSR, you want to speed up. You don't want to slow down. You want to give them, you really want to make them make a decision, or basically you really want them to buy the higher profit item, right? That's the truth behind QSR. It's not about, oh, let me help you pick your mind up. It's buy this thing. So from an automation perspective, it's critical. It speeds up the order. You have order accuracy. All of that comes into play. So I would say make it more of an operational approach. Supply chain, logistics, inventory management. There are some solutions out there that you basically will use your iPad or your phone and just check to see if something's on the shelf, or if a customer says, where is this? But if you could just talk to an AI and ask the question as the salesperson, it will help from workforce automation, but it also means that you don't have to remember it. So if this person leaves tomorrow, you still have that knowledge. So I think these are critical areas that can benefit from voice. And then just what Gwen said, customer behavior sentiment analysis. The Vocalytics Solution is a great way to start learning more about why your customer does things. And I think when I say anticipation of customer needs, it's really, if we're going to use conversation, it should be part of a bigger approach where you're anticipating the customer needs based on all of the other things that you learned about them. So it's like looking at my calendar and telling me it's my wife's birthday, because I forget, not that I forget, but telling me like, oh, I already ordered these things for you because I know it's her birthday tomorrow, so you don't have to worry about it. That to me brings a level of voice to a real need state of a customer. So if you're a retailer and you can build something that does that really anticipates the need and then communicates it in that way, I think that's where the true value will come from. And then of course, all of those practical uses we just saw where it's part of a larger retail tech ecosystem. I think that's where we can get a lot of traction for voice. So that's it for my presentation.
Fabulous. Does anyone have any questions for Manny?
Questions or comments of those of you, all others who were there at NRF?
Yep. Any other observations of NRF?
My only observation has nothing to do with technology, and that is that people need people.
Yes.
Yeah.
The people who were there were so, I'll tell you, you can talk about COVID all day long and you can do all your safety measures and all that stuff. But you put somebody in front of somebody else who you've known for decades and you haven't seen in 2 years. And let me tell you, COVID is the last thing on your mind. And I saw it in spades 100 times. And I will say it's the only NRF I came back from that I didn't get sick.
Well, maybe the masks are doing something.
This is the first year I have come back from NRF healthy and didn't get sick since. So,
that's funny.
I had this experience of seeing people I hadn't seen for like 18 months.
right.
And I felt like it was the last scene of The Wizard of Oz where I'd woken up from the dream. It's like, and you're still here, and you're still here.
Right.
We never left.
That's right.
And I agree that while they can't make money doing it, I'm loving these events where only the serious people are showing up. And you can actually talk, everybody you talk to is somebody who has something good to say and someone you wanted to see. And it won't last for much longer, but I seriously encourage anybody to go to the events before they get crowded again.
Before they go back to normal.
Very looking forward to a great shop talk this year. It
That's
was,
right.
I was on a super interesting call this past week that Robin Raskin ran that had to do with everybody in the event space in some way or another, like what they've encountered in December and January, and who chose not to have it, and who chose to have it, and how they're thinking about virtual and how they're thinking about hybrid events. And, you know, I'm like, no, everybody needs to go back to in person. But some of the things I heard really were fascinating of how to satisfy multiple audiences, because what it does is it keeps the content alive longer. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't go, because you're never going to duplicate those serendipity moments and et cetera, but you have access to stuff longer, which means that you have to completely rethink the sponsorship space, which is really daunting, but a really kind of important aspect. I know this doesn't have to do with, you know, voice, but it's really, it's interesting how different people are thinking about it. And so, yeah, it'll change, but nothing will replace in person.
Face to face. Agreed.
Agree.
Before we wrap up, I want to thank Manny, first of all, for the last two sessions, both CES and the NRF. So the quality of what you've put together has been fabulous for us, certainly. And I'm sure you're sharing it with a number of audiences. And I also want to thank you for co-moderating the commerce community for Open Voice Network with me. For Manny's he's not disappearing, but he has to step down. There's a lot of demands on his time, and he's served more than the 6 months that we've asked of him. So with that, I wanted to put a feeler out there. Anyone who's on this call, or if you know someone else, that I will need someone to overlap with my rotation serving the open voice network commerce community. So it's not a huge commitment of time. It's just what's the next session? What's the next topic? What are we going to bring back to this community? And how do we continue to grow the community? So I'd welcome any of you on the call, except for Manny and Jon, because you're to join me. And Vicky
Us
is
to be
their
part of the
third time.
community. I just won't be able to
Oh,
lead.
we need, yes, I'm looking for someone to assist. And it's important to have two of us because there's always that
Oh, yeah.
potential that someone is not available to host, to co-moderate a monthly call. And it's a monthly call. It's not a huge time commitment.
Gwen, I don't know enough about the community yet to really be helpful, but I will volunteer for the next one.
Next. Terrific. That's great.
That they will be in contact.
You
That's
can,
great.
yeah. So, well, if anyone else can, if anyone, you or someone from your group,
Yeah, I was thinking Susan might really be interested. Susan is Scott Westwater.
well, she's already done what she was
done a few.
moderating another community, wasn't she? More of a
But
She
we
did
can-
for a
we
little,
can-
she did for a little bit, I think, but
We can,
yeah.
we'll talk. Yeah, Ken, it's a good
circle
idea.
back.
Yeah,
Sure.
We'll circle back. Yeah, no, thank you.
excellent.
Cynthia,
Excellent.
thank you. We'll be in contact. And thank you all. Manny, tremendous again. Great to see everyone.
Yeah, it's
And
awesome.
have a great day. Thanks so much. And this will be posted again. And Manny, we're going to make this available to the larger community. Again, just tremendous presentation and very thoughtful. With all that, colleagues, have a great day. Thank you.
Okay,
Great.
thanks. Appreciate it.
Everybody.
Thanks for
Thank you.
joining us. Bye-bye.
Thank you.